Johnny Silverhand. You know Keanu Reeves plays this character in Cyberpunk 2077, so he's gonna be a big deal in the game. But who is he and why is he important? Let's take a look. So Johnny was born as Robert John Under, and he enlisted into the US military while he was still pretty young. He saw combat pretty quickly after enlisting as the Central American conflict kicked off in 2003. But from the information we have, it looks like he was injured early on and he lost his arm and then deserted the military. This conflict started when the US invaded Colombia, Ecuador, Peru and Venezuela. Their reason for invading was to stop drug lords selling their drugs in the US and damaging the economy, despite that most drugs sold in the US were artificial designer drugs manufactured in the US. The real reason for the invasion was that the US wanted to expand their borders and take more territory. The US wanted to get a solid hold over the Western Hemisphere. This angered the Euro corporations who already had a solid economic hold over South America, so they sent out aid, training, military equipment and funding to the countries being invaded. The US started to pour almost all of its military force into this conflict, and after 7 years, the war gradually started to end with small firefights, and the defending countries along with the Euro corporations emerged victoriously. The US started to pull out their military, but they had hired in hundreds of thousands of civilian contractors to help them with the war. However, the US didn't approve enough budget to withdraw everyone. Over 500,000 of these contractors were abandoned in Panama and Colombia. So all of these civilians had to make their way back to the US by themselves. The result of this was the Nomad March of 2010 to 2011, which had a higher casualty rate than the war itself. This also led to the formation of many Mexican nomad gangs, and since one of the starting origins in Cyberpunk 2077 is nomad, I would expect these guys to be descendants of these gangs. Now, due to the lies behind the war and how the US had handled it, many soldiers deserted the military. One of these deserters was Johnny. He made his way to Night City and changed his name to Johnny Silverhand. So why this name? He was injured during the war and lost his arm, so the name Silverhand came from his cybernetic arm. His new mission was rebellion. The first step of this plan was samurai. So after leaving the military, he formed Samurai in 2003 along with Kerry Eurodyne, Denny, Nancy, who would later change her name to Bess Isis, and Henry. The world loved their music and they loved Johnny. But it didn't last. Nancy was in an abusive relationship and she couldn't take it anymore. She pushed her abusive husband out of a window and she was taken to prison. The band, without their keyboard player, was split up in 2008. Johnny was still one of the most popular musicians in the world. He wanted to use this popularity to push anti-corporation and anti-government messages. A music label called DBS Music desperately wanted to sign him so much that they tried to blackmail him, threatening him that they will reveal his true identity as Robert John Under and his desertion from the military. Instead, Johnny signed for a competitor called Universal Music and released an album called Sins of Your Brothers, where he admitted he was a deserter and he revealed all the bad things the government had done. The album was a huge hit and the public loved Johnny. Now we fast forward to 2013. Johnny was out on a walk with his girlfriend Alt Cunningham when they were attacked and she was kidnapped by thugs working for the Arasaka Corporation. You see, Alt was a very talented programmer and net runner. She was working for ITS, another corporation, developing a piece of software called Soul Killer. For more info on Alt and Soul Killer, subscribe as I'll be making a video on them. Johnny gathered a team to get inside Arasaka and rescue Alt. He also called in his old band members to put on a free show right in front of the Arasaka headquarters, Arasaka Tower. However, Johnny and his strike team didn't make it to Alt in time. She was dead, but her mind was trapped inside the Arasaka mainframe. Johnny planned to get her back. Now we fast forward again to the 2020s. Johnny, alongside two solos called Rogue and Morgan Blackhand, led a new assault on the Arasaka Tower during the Fourth Corporate War. During the assault, they came across Adam Smasher, who is this guy, briefly seen in the trailers. He is more machine than man. Adam killed Johnny Silverhand in the assault, but Johnny's body was never recovered. This was due to a rival corporation called Militech International Armaments, who was also attacking Arasaka. They dropped a bomb on the tower, and there was nothing left to find. Johnny is still remembered today in game, roughly 50 years later in 2077. You can see graffiti around Night City that simply says, "Where's Johnny?" His fans hope he is still out there somewhere. And that's where V comes in. The playable character in Cyberpunk 2077 is being haunted by a digital ghost of Johnny Silverhand, and he is going to use V to accomplish his goals, which are not entirely clear yet. Now, I'm going to come up with some theories on what happened to Johnny and why he is with V. So you could potentially call this a slight spoiler warning, just in case some of these theories are true. So theory 1 is that Arasaka recovered Johnny's body and separated his mind from his body using Soulkiller, which is what they did with Alt. But now Johnny has escaped from whatever digital prison he was being held in, and for some reason, maybe because of some action that V takes in the early stages of the game, Johnny makes his way into some implant that V has. Theory 2 is that V somehow has a piece of cyberware that belonged to Johnny, which happened to store something of what Johnny was inside it, and now that part of the cyberware has sort of woken up. And theory 3 is that Johnny had something installed in him that would allow him to separate his mind from his body, which he may do just before he died back in the 2020s. Maybe his mind was lying dormant somewhere in the net, which is Cyberpunk's version of like the internet, until the right time to connect with someone to help lead a new rebellion against the government and the corporations. We'll have more videos coming up with more information on Cyberpunk 2077, which will cover Alt Cunningham, Soulkiller, Samurai, the multiplayer portion of the game, and more. I will also be live streaming the game once it comes out, along with making other videos on the game like guides and tips, so make sure you subscribe now so you don't miss out. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.